Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, and today's video we are going to discuss something very interesting and yet it is very important. It is the main survival process that goes on in a human body, without which we would not have thought of living. It is the first organ that starts functioning when a zygote is developed. The first thing that tells us or gets to know that yes, there is a fetus developing inside that of a mother. You are correct, it is actually the human heart. It starts taking from that time onwards for a human being, and it stops only at the death of the person. So let's see or let's learn about the details of human heart, as it in that how long it is, how big it is, where it is exactly located, and etc. etc. And obviously the function of the human heart. How does it function, or how does the work take place within that of the human heart? So the first thing we ought to know about the human heart is how big it is. Or we all know that everyone tells that the human heart is the size of a fist. So it is the size of a fist. Now let's see what is the size of a human heart. Obviously, this size that I'm referring to or I'll be talking about, it is the size of a grown person. The human heart or the heart of a child is obviously smaller in size. What we are referring to about here is the size of a well-grown or properly developed person. So according to Gray's Anatomy, the heart length is 12 centimeter. That is, from here to here it is 12 centimeter in length, and the width is 8.5 centimeter. The width of the heart is 8.5 centimeter, while the thickness is 6 centimeter. It is 6 centimeter thick. So it is 12 centimeter long, around 8 to 8.5 centimeter in width, and 6 centimeter in thickness. In addition, the mean weight of the heart is around 280 to 340 gram in males and 230 to 280 grams in females. So obviously the female heart is a little lighter than that of a male heart. So the male heart weighs around 280 to 340 gram, and the female heart weighs around 230 to 280 grams. So it is lighter in that, or in case of the females. So this is more or less about the size of the human heart of a well-developed human being. Next, we move on to where is the heart located. We all know, we all have known to it that our human heart is located on the left hand side or the left chest of our human body. Now let's get the accurate position or get to understand exactly where it is located. So the human heart is in the front of our chest. It is in the front of our chest, that is just below the sternum, that is just below the sternum, that is just below or inside that of the rib cage to provide protection to that of the heart, and slightly behind and to the left of the sternum. So this is the sternum, this is the sternum, and these are the ribs. Inside, just back to that of the sternum, the heart is placed, and the apex of the heart, that is the pointed part, this is called the apex of the heart. So this apex is slightly tilted towards the left. So it is commonly told that heart is placed at the left part of your chest. So it is just tilted towards the left. So this apex is towards the left. So this is the position. It is mostly situated at the center, that is just at the back of the sternum, and the apex is tilted little bit onto the left side. In very rare cases, obviously human beings have been reported having the apex of the heart tilted towards the right hand side also. It is obviously in very rare cases, but yes, such cases have been reported. So it is mostly towards the left hand side, from the center towards the left, but in some rare cases it is from the center towards the right that it is located. Now for the heart, you see, we all have the idea that whenever a thing or whenever we name a thing, the apex is always at the top, the base is at the bottom. But for the heart, it is just the opposite. So the apex is at the down, or that is the apical portion or the pointed portion which points downwards, and the base is this one. This is the base of the heart, which is on the top of it. So this is about the location specific and also the apex and the base of the heart. Next, when we come to what is the structure of the human heart. So it is a very important structure, as in size of a fist, and obviously located at the center, just back of a sternum, located or tilted little towards the left, but obviously in very rare cases we get to see it is tilted towards the right. Now let's understand the structure of the heart. Now structure of the heart is, if you understand or if you remember it, it is very easy. But if you don't remember it properly, it is obviously a little bit confusing, because it has 4 chambers and multiple number of things happening inside the human heart. So heart has a left side and a right side, and they are separated by a thin muscular wall called the septum. Now this is the septum. So it has a left hand side and a right hand side, and it is separated by that of the septum. And both the sides of the heart have an upper chamber and a lower chamber. So they both have an upper chamber, that is chamber number 2 and chamber number 1, and a lower chamber, that is chamber number 4 and chamber number 3. So it is having a 4-chambered, we have a 4-chambered heart, and these chambers, the left and the right, is divided by the means of a small muscular wall called the septum. The upper chambers are called the left and the right atrium. So the upper chambers, because A, atrium, A is always senior or comes first in the alphabet. So left atrium and right atrium it arises on the top, whereas the lower chambers are called the left ventricle and the right ventricle. The left atrium and the right atrium is also known as the left auricle and the right auricle also. Instead of atrium, if we call it as auricle, that is also correct. So the left and the right ventricle, it is the lower portion, and that is the left and the right one. The right side of the heart receives the oxygenated blood, and that has just traveled around the body. So this part, see here it is written, receives the deoxygenated blood. So the right hand side receives the deoxygenated blood. In this photo, the blue colored ones receives the deoxygenated blood, whereas the red colored ones receives the oxygenated blood. So the right hand portion or the right hand side receives the deoxygenated, the left hand part receives the oxygenated one. It pumps the blood to our lungs to collect a fresh supply of oxygen. Obviously this deoxygenated blood is sent to that of the lungs in order to get the oxygen into that of the blood. And the left side of our heart pumps the reoxygenated blood round to the body again. Now once it goes to the lungs, that oxygen gets into the blood, and that oxygenated blood moves or comes through the left atrium and the left ventricle, and it is transferred or taken up to the rest of the body, so that each cells of our body receives the oxygen that is required for the purpose of the other activities or other regular activities that the body needs to do. So the left side of the heart pumps the reoxygen. Our heart muscle is made up of 3 layers of tissue. This is important because our heart muscles are made up of 3 layers of tissues. What are they? Pericardium, it is a thin outer lining that protects and surrounds our heart. A myocardium, that is the thick muscular middle layer, it contracts and relaxes because of the systolic and diastolic removal or the beating of the heart. And endocardium, which is the innermost layer, it is thin inner layer and makes the lining of the four chambers and the valves in our heart. So pericardium, the outermost, myocardium, the innermost, it is quite thick in nature because it contracts and relaxes. The contraction and relaxation is taken up or done by that of the myocardium, so it is thick in nature, whereas endocardium is again thin. Peri and endo are both thin layers, whereas the myocardium is a thick layered one. And four chambers and the valves in our heart. Now this, if we see, this is the structure. So what exactly happens? See here what I was mentioning there. This is the left atrium, this is the left ventricle. It consists of four chambers, four one-way valves, and here there are valves that actually helps in the flow of the blood, but only one-way flow of the blood. It helps in one-way flow, so there is no backward flow of the blood taking place. So the oxygenated blood enters through this pulmonary veins from that of the lungs and comes into the left atrium. So left atrium, then it opens this valve. This is known as the bicuspid valve because this has two cusps. See, two are there, so it is called the bicuspid valve and comes to the ventricle. From the ventricle, it goes to different parts of the body. Once it is transferred through that of the aorta, that is the main artery or the biggest artery in human body. Next, the deoxygenated blood from the inferior and the superior vena cava enters into the right atrium and it moves into the right ventricle through the tricuspid valve. See here, three are there. So it is a tricuspid valve and moves to the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, it is passed on through this pulmonary artery into the lungs. We'll get to see that in detail once again. So this is the structure as well as the functioning of the heart. I was already telling you a little in the previous slide. Let us get to understand this in detail in this slide. See what happens. So the oxygenated blood, you can see the red colored blood is the oxygenated one. It enters through the pulmonary vein into that of the left atrium. Remember, the atrium rise or lays is on the topmost part. So atrium left and right is on the top. So the oxygenated blood enters into the left atrium, and once it comes into the left atrium, see the bicuspid valve opens and the blood fills into the left ventricle. Once it comes into the left ventricle, then from the left ventricle through this it reaches the aorta. Once it moves to the aorta, I told you that is the main artery of the body. It is circulated to different parts of the body, that is to the upper part as well as the lower parts. Upper part means the head, the shoulder, the arms, the neck, everywhere, and even the lower parts, that is the stomach, the kidneys, the hand, the legs, the feet, everywhere it is transported. Now, when this oxygenated blood reaches each of the cell, obviously the cells take up that oxygen which is used for the process of the breakdown of glucose to regulate or to receive energy for doing other work. Now once it has been done, the blood is now devoid of oxygen. It does not have any oxygen anymore. So the blood now becomes a deoxygenated blood. As it becomes a deoxygenated blood, this blood comes into the inferior vena cava. So from the lower parts of the body, it comes into the inferior vena cava, and from the upper parts of the body, it comes into the superior vena cava. And this deoxygenated blood enters into the right atrium through that of the vena cava. Once it comes to the right atrium, what happens? This valve opens. So this valve is a tricuspid valve. It has 3 cusps. So it is called a tricuspid valve. Once it opens, this deoxygenated blood fills the left ventricle. Once it fills the left ventricle, this blood needs, or it is transported through the pulmonary artery and goes into the lungs. And there the oxygenation of the blood takes place in the lungs. Once the oxygen has taken place, oxygenation, it comes in through this pulmonary veins and enters into the left atrium. So this way, it goes off this way and again comes this way, and it is going to the lungs this way. So this is the working of the heart that is taking place. Now, in order to know, or in order to have a very explicit idea, and also the idea or the working you can remember, this is a very easy diagram that we all can make anytime, and we can remember the functioning of the heart. This is just a rectangle. We divided into 4 parts. I told you the word with A comes above. So atrium, left, right, left ventricle, right ventricle. V comes later in the alphabet series. So V is down, left and right. Now the blood, or the oxygenated blood from the pulmonary vein, enters the left atrium through the bicuspid valve. It comes into the left ventricle, and through the aorta it moves through the different parts of the body. Now once the body uses that oxygen which is present in the blood, what does it do? It gives the deoxygenated blood to that of the vein, and the veins carry it to the inferior and the superior vena cava. Inferior vena cava brings it from the lower parts of the body, and superior brings from the upper parts of the body. Now this blood comes and gets into the right atrium. Now once it is right atrium, it pushes the valve. It is a tricuspid valve. It opens up and the blood comes and fills into the right ventricle. Upon filling the right ventricle, it moves out of this right ventricle and through the pulmonary artery, it moves on to the lungs, where the oxygenation of the blood takes place. So this is a very simple mechanism, or very simple diagram to remember the mechanism of the working of the heart. This you can do it and you can explain it in very simple words, and obviously you are going to get the full marks for it, because this is absolutely and scientifically correct. Now let's move on, that how does the blood around the heart and the body, how does it flow? Whatever we have discussed, this is what has been written here. So the heart is linked to the rest of the circulatory system with the blood vessels called the arteries and the veins. The ones which carries the oxygenated blood away from the heart is called the arteries, and the one which carries deoxygenated blood towards the heart are called the veins. Arteries deliver oxygen-rich blood from the heart and to the rest of the areas of the body, whereas veins return to the deoxygenated blood from the organs back to our heart. The arteries and veins are connected by even smaller blood vessels called the blood capillaries. The blood flows around our heart and the rest of the body is in one direction, like a one-way traffic system. Our heart valves control the direction of the blood flow, and they act like doors that open and close with every heartbeat. The valves in our heart are the tricuspid valve on the right hand side and the mitral valve, or the bicuspid valve, on the left side of our. The right atrium receives the low oxygen blood that travels around the body, and the right atrium pumps the blood to the right ventricle. The right ventricle pumps the low oxygen blood to the lungs to pick up a fresh supply. And the left atrium receives the high oxygen blood from the lungs and pumps it to the left ventricle. And the left ventricle pumps this oxygen-rich blood to different parts of the body through the aorta. So this brings us to the end of the presentation, where we have discussed about the heart, a very important organ of our human body. It is the first organ, I told you, that develops when a zygote or embryo is developing in the mother's womb. And it is due to this organ that we all are living. It is the organ which controls or which makes any living being alive. So this is a very important organ, and obviously the functioning, the structure, the location are all very interesting. So this brings us to the end of this video, that is where I have discussed about the heart. If you have liked my video, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. And obviously if you have any questions, please put it into the comments box. I will surely come back to you. So that's it for now. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll meet again in my next video. Thank you.